Hey everybody, it's Mick from When You Look, giving you a heads up that there's a parental advisory on this particular episode. There's great insight in it, lots of amazing conversation, but not all of the topics are ones that you necessarily want your younger kids listening to.
I feel like I had an out of body near death experience because I remember seeing it like I was floating above the ceiling of my bedroom, looking down and watching them run into my room. I had my dog at my feet. I had 3 letters on my chest. One of them was like right in my right ear, and I can still hear what she was saying.
Welcome to When You Look, where ordinary people share their extraordinary experiences, and you get to decide, was it coincidence or God? Jordan, welcome to When You Look. So great to have you here.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Man, we are for sure pumped to hear it because you have an amazing story. But before we get into that, we need to get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. I'm Jordan Bailey. I'm a creative in the marketing field in a little town called Kingsport, Tennessee. I went to school in Atlanta at the Savannah College of Art and Design. Thought I was going to be a fine artist, but I'm in marketing. But I get to bring creativity to work with me every day, which I love. And I also have a little side hustle called Weirdo because I love to put weird things in dough. It's a little baking side hustle. And I have 2 cats. And at the time of this recording, I'm single. So,
well, it sounds like quite the adventurous life for you thus
it is
far.
So much fun. It is so much fun.
That is awesome. Well, thanks for the little bit of background. I know for sure we want to hear at some point a little bit more about Weirdo. For all of those that are wondering, that is Weirdo with a D-O-U-G-H. So if you're Googling that right now, you'll probably be able to find Jordan that way. But we'll hear more about that in a little bit. But let's get into kind of the meat of the story that brings you here to When You Look. Give us the backstory and then walk us through things as it went for you.
Yeah. Well, I did grow up going to church a lot, but there was not a lot of conversation about what the Holy Spirit was. And so it was more about you better act right in church. I did a lot of volunteering, part of the youth group. I went on every mission trip. I was playing in the youth band. I was leading worship for the big church. And so it was very performative, not knowing really that it was at the time because I felt like I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But I was still, I think, always missing that connection piece of community, which is the recurring theme over my entire story is community. And so, although I had all this experience, I had I memorized Bible verses, I didn't have a relationship with God. It wasn't really modeled to me at home. It wasn't always the most gentle of households. And that caused a lot of hurt that I'm, dealing with now as an adult, and which I think led to a lot of my problems as an adult because there were things I didn't even know were issues that hurt me. And it created a lot of false identities in me. One thing that I've learned recently, because I didn't really go through any big T trauma events as a kid, but there might have been a lot of little T trauma. And Tim Fletcher is a trauma expert I've been learning a lot from lately. And he described little T trauma as the good things that we didn't receive. So whether that was understanding or connection or love or whatever. And so that's kind of where I start as an adult, having that false identity as disposable or unworthy.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was trekking along, graduated high school, went to college, my senior year of college at a little place in Texas. I got a mass communications degree. I was spoken into by a mentor at the church I was working for at the time. I was doing youth ministry for about 3 years. Loved it. That was one of the best jobs ever. And I was doing, a lot of eating of burritos and sleepovers, very, very
Yeah.
fun. And I was trying to teach the Bible and show kids love. And again, I think I was just constantly seeking out that community because I always felt a little other my whole life. And
Hmm.
so I thought, maybe I can love the others in that youth group. And so I was able to kind of love them. But anyway, I had a mentor. I was doing a lot of creative things for the church, kind of outside the scope of what a normal youth intern would do. And someone said, you can actually have a creative career. Because at the time I thought I was going to be a journalist and like save the world.
Hmm.
But he said, I dare you to apply to 5 art schools and I will pay for all your application fees. And this was my senior year of college. I was like, why am I going to go to art school now? I'd never even taken an art class in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, what am I doing? And it was the first really scary thing, but I think it really spoke to my soul for the first time to think that I could pursue something that I never thought was possible. And someone saw something in me and believed in me and said, here's the money for it. Like, I will support you in this. And it was a really good act of love for this. He was my boss at the time to shower me with this like pouring into of like, I see this thing in you and I want to foster that. And so I felt seen for the first time and ended up getting into SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. I decided to go to the Atlanta campus. And so I'm 21. I just graduate with my first degree. I surprise my parents at my graduation dinner and say, surprise, I'm going to a school again. I'm going to start school over again. And they're like, wait, what? How are you paying for this? But I was thankfully, I had a scholarship.
Hmm.
I was very blessed. I mean, it has God written all over it because everything just happened so easily and it fell into place and line and met the right people at the right time. And I think the journey for how I got to school was such a God thing. And I see like the connection of how it all happened. But it was what happened when I got there that started to unravel everything. Absolutely.
Yeah. Fill us in.
So I'm 21. Guess what happens when you're 21 and you're and you're living outside the house for the first time? Because I grew up in Amarillo, Texas, and Atlanta is about a 21-hour drive away. So I'm nowhere near mom and dad anymore. And it didn't really occur to me to really seek out a church home when I got to Atlanta. I was missing community. Well, I found community, just not in the church. And so I, a full-time student, but, you can't really have a 9 to 5. So that's why a lot of students, will bartend or wait tables. And that industry is full of people who like every time you get off a shift, you have a drink. And so I found my community of people. I found friends. Um, it was just like a huge culture shock. And I just felt like this is how I become less other. How can I be kind of cool or how can I fit
Mm.
in? I'm being invited to these parties and it felt right at the time. It felt good at the time, but I regret a lot of that because it ended up becoming a habit that I could not stop once I got home. And so that led to some alcohol abuse. Let me
Mm.
rephrase that. That led to a lot of alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just it's heartbreaking to think that I feel like I wasted a lot of what could have been the best years of my life, um, not being sober. And I was doing well at school, Dean's List every quarter.
Wow.
Graduated with the cum laude. Felt like I had all this potential. it's an international art school. It's very well renowned, and it's an accolade to graduate from there. And I was doing such cool things with cool people until graduation happened. And then that community ended, my art community, my education community, the people I was like going out and doing like outside of school art exhibitions with. And a lot of those people, because they weren't wasting their time on the weekends or every weekday drinking, they were off getting jobs and having internships and really building up their portfolio and being in a lot healthier mental space. And so a lot of my friends went off to LA and New York or just got really cool jobs in Atlanta or Chicago. And I tried my best at the time, which was as a very unhealthy person who was abusing alcohol and other things. And I just couldn't seem to find my fit again in Atlanta. And so like, I'm graduated, I had 2 degrees. I couldn't find a job in the town that I thought I loved. All of my community's gone. I went through a massive breakup in 2015, thought I was going to marry him, was planning out my whole life. And then it ended because we were both very unhealthy, and it was a good thing that we ended it. But I didn't know who I was. And I was believing all these lies about me, about myself, that maybe I am disposable, and maybe I don't have any potential, and maybe I'm just good at school and I can't actually rock it in the real world, right? And so I was like, I had opened up my last bartending job was at a really cool music venue in Atlanta. And it was so toxic. And, it, I would just come home, and on the days I wasn't working, I would wake up and pick up a bottle of wine because I couldn't just be alone with my thoughts. What I'm learning now is that I was numbing my own mind because I felt so uncomfortable being sober. And so that was my mid-20s, and I really have a lot of regrets about that. And I feel like when I connect with other people, I hear other people's stories. I get it because I've been through some really dark times. That was so 2015 through 2016 were the worst years in Atlanta. Just bartending and being as numb as possible to my own thoughts. I wasn't really making any work. All of my identities were gone. My community was gone. And so I started really having a ton of crazy thoughts about what if I just didn't exist anymore? And it I remember a specific day that I just felt like I couldn't get out. I mean, there were many days I didn't get out of bed, but I just didn't know what to do anymore. And I had the thought of like, what would that phone call to my mom be like if she got a phone call about that? And that was what made me call her. And she's a good lady. She's a good lady. She came and got me. She came and got me. She rescued me. And so I lived with my parents for a couple of months in Texas. And then another grace of God moment, she got a job out in Tennessee. And it was just kind of like, I didn't even know she was looking for another job. She just said, "Hey, I'm moving to Tennessee. You can come follow me if you want." I had nothing going on. I was desperate for a change. I was still abusing alcohol at this point. And I don't think they knew. I don't think they knew. I was able to hide it somewhat. And so I did follow her. It's a beautiful story because I mean, I found the agency that I'm currently working for 8.5 years ago. and I moved there to work with them. And as I continue to tell my story, just remember I'm with the same people. And so through all my missteps, in the next couple of years, like they kept saying like, no, we love you. You are worth being here with us. You're part of our family. And they've employed me even despite some of the things that have happened, which I think other
Wow.
employers wouldn't have kept me around. So and where we're at as an agency now is in such a beautiful space. And I just know that it was all part of God's plan. But again, I'm new to a state. I don't know anyone. I don't have a community yet. I still don't seek out a church community. Where do you find friends when you're new to town? The
The
bars.
bar.
And I did. And I found my friends, and they were just as unhealthy as me. And so pretty much immediately I started getting into trouble with driving under the influence,
Hmm.
and got my first two arrests within the first 2 years of me being in Tennessee. And so that by now it's October 14th, 2018. I experienced a traumatic interaction with a guy, and was also the second time I was arrested. And something I said to the officer who took me in made him think that I needed to be put into the suicide watch tank.
Hmm.
I wasn't given a phone call. I don't know if you know much about, but just for anyone who doesn't know what the suicide watch tank is, in a county jail, it is where it is it is a room with no beds. You can't wear clothes. So they give you like a little turtle suit
Hmm.
that you just have a head, hole for your head, but otherwise you're naked. And so like no respect for privacy. You're completely stripped away of all of your anything that could give you security or safety in a room with no beds, just like kind of a concrete bench where you can sit down, and a toilet in the middle of the room. And at any number, I mean, they never turn off the lights. And I honestly feel like it is kind of a torture
Hmm.
because every hour they do a proof of life check. That makes sense, right? But they make you lift your head every hour. So if you do end up getting some sleep, falling asleep somehow, you get woken up every hour. And so I was in there, um, got arrested, went in on a Sunday. It was Wednesday before anyone on the outside found me because I didn't get a phone call. So I was basically a missing person. No one could find my car. I mean, that
Yeah.
stressed out my whole family. And then finally, someone decided to call the jail, and I was there. But you can't be bailed out until after you're seen from a licensed therapist and counselor that says you're okay to be put into general population, and then you can get bailed out. And so the way that the guards spoke to us, the names they called us, the women I met while I was in there who were in there, either they just said whatever they could to the guards so they can get out of their cell for a little bit and get a new environment, even though it was a worse environment. Fights that happened, physical altercations that happened right in front of me. And I've never been in a place like that before. And I was scared. And I
Yeah.
thought, surely I've lost my job. I don't know what I'm going to do. Um, they only let you shower once every 3 days. I mean, it was not a place of healing for people who are on suicide watch. um, it's quite the opposite. And so, and again, I do believe with my whole heart, 10 toes down, the way the staff guards treated us was abusive.
Hmm.
And so I started writing my suicide note in my head,
Wow.
and I memorized it. And I knew that that was in October. my first court date to show up to be sentenced for. So that was just, my arraignment, but that actual sentencing for like whatever more time I was supposed to serve was going to be on December 18th. And so I made my plan. That's when I would do it. I would spend the next 2 months planning everything out, collecting all the pills I needed to make sure that it was successful. But I was not. And I'm so thankful for it. I do believe, I just remember, and during the 2 months of my continuing to go back to work, my boss convincing me to go to therapy. And so I showed up for a few sessions, but when you're sick, I think you kind of know like what to say to avoid anyone catching on to you. And so I can't even, there were days I would just cry in the drive-through trying to get food. I was hopeless. And if there's anything that the outcome of this conversation is really just to speak to people who might feel like that, because, gosh, there is hope and there is healing. And I know what it's like to want to die and to feel like there's no other way out.
Yeah.
And so that morning, I was missing work. 3 coworkers came and found me.
This is the morning of your court date?
Yes. December 18th, 2018. And I was laying in bed. I had written my notes. So it was the same note I started in that room. And I feel like I had an out of body near death experience, because I remember seeing it like I was like floating above the ceiling of my bedroom, looking down and watching them run into my room. I had my dog at my feet guarding me. I had 3 letters on my chest. And one of them was like right in my right ear. And I can still, like, sometimes I'll have flashbacks, not so much anymore, but right after that experience, I would have flashbacks, or like maybe like PTSD, but I can still like hear what she was saying. And she has a very, very sweet, Tennessee accent. And I feel like she called me home. Ambulance came, picked me up, revived me. And,
Wow.
so I remember talking with the doctor, a day or 2 later at the hospital, and he said, like, if they had waited 30 minutes to an hour, I probably wouldn't have been alive. And so
Wow.
I know that that's a God thing, because I had taken those pills the day before. There was no reason, like, it wasn't that I did it that morning. It was like I had been like that for probably 18 hours.
Wow.
So I don't think it is not a coincidence that I'm alive. And if I can do anything to help steer other people away from making that decision, that's why I'm sharing my story. And that's why I'm so vulnerable, because it begets relatability. Like, I want people to understand, like, it is okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. Like, there is hope.
Yeah.
And so, because that happened in like middle December, of course, I spent Christmas and New Year's in a great facility in my home in that town. And, you know, eh, just because you make the decision that you want to get better, it doesn't mean that you're just better.
Mm,
So it really
that's a
takes
good point.
time and practice, and you have to still decide to get better every day, because it's really easy to say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to follow this plan. I'm going to take my inventory. I'm going to do, this therapy stuff. when you're motivated, but there are days when you're not motivated and that you feel that like hopeless feeling sinking back in, and you have to be resilient in those moments. And being resilient doesn't feel like you're being resilient. It just feels like you're scared. But then you can look back when you have some distance and really acknowledge like, wow, I was really resilient during that time. Um, and so flash forward a couple of years, of course, 2020 happens. This whole time I'm actually doing therapy. Like I'm really telling the truth.
Big difference.
Yes. Huge. Had a great therapist. And I was always really, not always, but when I was working in Atlanta and I was at these really cool bars that I was working in, bartending, doing craft cocktail bartending and rubbing elbows with the chefs with all the knives and the vegetables like tattoos, and everyone always makes like a really good pork belly slider. um, I was rubbing elbow with really cool chefs that I've never had experience. I mean, I was just falling in love with food culture and like celebrity chefs. And then I moved to this like smaller town that doesn't necessarily have as big of a awesome food scene as Atlanta. And so I feel like I was complaining at the time that, that there was like a lack of good food in my area. And I guess this could be a metaphor for something even bigger too. But my therapist was saying, instead of complaining about there not being any good food, why don't you start to learn how to make it? Because I didn't really know how to cook. I knew what I loved in good food, and I loved the bougie stuff and loved being pretentious. I thought I was going to be a sommelier at one point, but then I never spit out the wine. And so,
yeah.
And so like I was like, okay, I think I had good taste, but I don't have the skill. And so that was how I started to heal, was learning how to cook, because I live alone. I'm perpetually single, perpetually dating, but never anything serious. And so like, how do I spend my time at home? And it was a great habit. And I recommend it for anyone to learn how to cook properly. And so I was taking like master classes with Gordon Ramsay and learned about knife skills and learned how to make stocks and even just like food culture and like how different cultures around the world like use food for different expressions and why we get, the crossover. It was just fascinating to me. And so that was my whole world, my whole personality. And it really was a way that I could spend time at home doing something healthy and feeding myself emotionally, spiritually, and literally. I was actually eating good food instead of the frozen meals that I used to eat because I didn't have the energy. And so it gave me like a thing to get excited about. And I think when you are healing from extreme depression and by the way, I started a sober journey at this point. Journey, not, didn't hit the destination right away, but up and down, but I really was trying. And so if anyone is like really struggling with healing, recovering from depression or alcohol abuse, I think when you're taking something away from your life, you have to add something healthy in place of it. And getting a habit or a hobby like cooking or needlepoint or, anything else that's really fun to do that's not harming yourself. I think that's what you need to focus on and get obsessed with it. And so I did.
To fill the space.
Yes. And take up the time because I feel like I wasted my mid-20s and early 30s. And so at this point, I'm like kind of documenting my cooking journey on social media and sharing with people all the things that I'm learning and like plating skills. I'm really getting into like food photography, and it's like everything in my life just was joining, like my creative desires and like desire to create something cool and visual, but also like with the food. And because of that, because I was sharing what I was learning, and I think this is a huge key as well, share what you're doing with people. Because then I started getting opportunities to actually start teaching cooking classes at a cool
Hmm.
cooking school. And so I'm like starting to
Wow.
make money doing food stuff. And it was like a hope that like, oh, I can do and be something that I never thought I could do. And it was like this beautiful thing that I could lean into. And so still like every once in a while struggling with sobriety, but for the most part, like making a really good college try at it, and um, I really withdrew from that previous community, and I have a great work community. I always have, but I still didn't have that spiritual part. And so at this point, it's 2022. Um, I fell in love with baking, and I made a bacon cookie, like a cookie with bacon in it and
Hmm.
caramel and chocolate and sea salt. And I posted a picture of it. Someone said, "Hey, can I buy a dozen for Thanksgiving?" So right around this time, a couple years ago, I started baking for people for the first time. Um, Loved it. Felt like super driven by it. I felt like God was saying, "This is the next thing I'm inviting you into." Um, it was a puzzle I didn't know how to solve yet. Like, I don't know like, how do I package it? And like, I mean, it was, and then I wanted to brand it. And so, like, again, it was my creativity with like, now I'm kind of being an entrepreneur. I didn't think I could do that before. And so God was showing me like every little step of obedience that I'm taking in my journey of healing, you get another opportunity that is like giving life into you. And so Weirdo was born. And then, gosh, I was just being so filled up. But still, even with all that good stuff happening, I was still struggling with alcohol. And so so this was so back in March. So I do the Weirdo thing. I actually start selling at a grocery store, really cool boutique grocery store, in an adjoining town, and loved it. So now I'm like baking for retail, and every
Hmm.
week I'm just churning out like, you know, then that's paying my rent, and I'm just loving it and I'm thriving in it, still struggling with alcohol. I go back to, I find a great church, Christ Fellowship in Kingsport, Tennessee, changed my life. Not the actual church, but the people in the church who loved me. And they taught me, they were teaching classes. They call it equip classes because their whole mission is to equip people to be who God created them to be. And so they do equip classes. And the first one I took was called Hearing God. And so around the time that I'm starting my business, I'm falling back in love with Jesus, but I'm still struggling with alcohol.
Yeah.
And um, it that hearing God class changed my life. And I started learning how to like be silent. And I was hearing how really the main message that I started hearing from the creator of the universe was that I was his daughter, his beloved daughter. And it was chasing away that false identity I have of being disposable or unworthy. Because if God says that I'm his daughter, um, and if he can say that even after what I did to myself, and he's telling me he forgives me, and I had countless encounters of just silent praying where I just felt like the Holy Spirit was holding my head with his hands and saying like, "You are enough. And I created you to stay here and talk about it." And so,
Yeah.
I probably share too many details for some people on like my social media about some of my struggles, but I think it's because I feel like God has told me that this, like my story is to be used and not just hidden. And I'm not afraid to share those vulnerable details. And I think other people who might be can still benefit from it. And so I just give all the glory to God for just, He's spoken to me. He ran after me. I was definitely the prodigal son, prodigal daughter, I guess. um, and he picked up his robe and ran after me into the field. And he didn't wait for me to come all the way home. He came and got me. And it, um, gosh, when I have hard days, like I had a hard day today with just anxiety and stuff, I just felt God saying, like, I'm coming. I'm right here. Like, I'm chasing after you. Don't despair. I am right here. And learning how to hear from God, learning to be contemplative and just to sit in silence and ask Him, what do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? He will give us these feelings, or will speak through other people or through scripture or through nature or through music or through angels or through any other way that he could speak. He is only going to say good things, righteous things. He's only going to say that he loves you. So I'm having all this amazing like spiritual revelation. I'm still struggling with alcohol. So I so this is where the big event comes, like March 2024. I get arrested again. And this time it's bad. And it was like one of those like barely, like I could have definitely gotten away with it, but I think I wasn't supposed to. And I think, not that I think God caused the arrest, but it was a wake up call that without that, I would probably still be in that cycle. So even though it changed my life for the worst, it also changed my life for the better. And it was a major wake up call. And so this is like the main, I guess, story. I can't believe it's taking me so long to tell this story, but
Okay.
so I was so blessed. This is where, like, I know it's not a coincidence, Mick, because I had a whole 15 months between my arrest and my sentencing, because by the grace of God and by the grace of a good lawyer and a good judge, they allowed us to reset every time we went to court. And it was, I'm just lucky. I think it was just a God thing, but it was like, he wouldn't let me go there until I was ready to do what he wanted me to do there. And so, within that 15 months of waiting, without having that, like, I knew I was going to have to spend, about 65 days in jail. I had that hanging over my head for 15 months.
Wow.
And so, like, it was just a battle every day, but also it was like, oh my gosh, God loves me so much. I'm alive. I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't hurt myself. I totaled a car that I loved, but other than that, like, I survived something that could have killed me again. And God saying, I'm not done with you. I'm going to use this. Just wait, just be obedient. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And so I'm like, yes, God, like, I surrender. And in July of 2024, I got rebaptized at my church and shared a little bit of my journey with my community. I actually started being really honest with a really amazing Bible study that I have, that I've been part of for a couple of years now. And they didn't run away. They loved me. And that's the community that saved my life. Gosh, I love those women so much. And so, and again, like, I'm thriving in my business still. I get nominated to do a TEDx talk. Again, I didn't know if I could say yes, because I didn't know when I would be going to jail. But I just felt like God was saying, like, if someone invites you to a party, you say yes. and
Hmm.
and so I just and I've never spoken in public before. And so I start the journey of doing this with just not even knowing if I'd have to drop out because how do you tell the TED organization that sorry, I can't do this TED talk. I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, the timing, there is no coincidence whatsoever, the timing of it, because June 3rd, 2025, I did my TEDx talk. July 7th, I walk into jail as the healthiest version of myself.
Wow.
And I felt like God was saying, I'm giving you 65 days because I had been running, full-time job, running a retail bakery business, preparing for a TED Talk. And he's like, you're about to have nothing to do for 65 days. No responsibilities, no job, no business. I want you to use this time to write and to love women. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done. Because I
Wow.
walk into jail and gosh, at the first night I got pulled out of my bunk. Uh, the big dog on campus saw I said something on the phone that implicated that I had brought drugs in with me because I was seeing drugs around me in the cell. And I was so naive. I kind of maybe mentioned something about I'm nervous for my sobriety in here to someone else I was talking to. I was so scared. And they thought that meant that I had brought some in. And so they pull me out and get right up in my face and say that they're going to charge me with a conspiracy to introduce, which is a felony. And so they're interrogating me like I'm guilty. And thankfully I wasn't. I mean, obviously I hadn't. And so they realized that they made a mistake. They moved me to a new cell P for Papa. And I was so scared. There was still drugs in that cell, but the air was different. It felt like I was supposed to be there. It really felt like, okay, this is where, and I felt like this connection with God inside that cement room more than anywhere else to this day, even since I've been out. I just felt like I was in
Wow.
constant communion. And so, this is the part I said, I haven't shared this with anyone else, but I know that she wouldn't mind. So there is a woman, I'm going to use her real name because I know she won't mind, Amanda, who I think was my guardian angel. She had prior experience in prison. She was there to wait to be taken to Nashville because we're in Tennessee to find out that she was probably done serving her time. She doesn't have to spend any more time in prison. And so it was something that you have to do. I mean, unfortunately, you still have to go in and show up and whatever. But it was only supposed to take anywhere between a week and 2 weeks. And while we were in there, it was we started leading Bible studies together. And because I don't look like, talk like, act like, have the experiences as any of the other women in there, for the first 2 weeks, they were convinced that I was a snitch or working with the police. And so for probably that first week, some of the women in there who had things to hide or a business running in and out of the room with a lot of money attached and some drugs attached threatened to kill me if I got in the way of their money or just hurt me, which is also scary.
Sure.
But I was just terrified, absolutely terrified. But my solace was my friend Amanda. And I've connected with her on a level that I've never connected with. She truly was a soul friend. And she had crazy experiences, these crazy stories, but she had a faith in God that she knew a lot of the concepts I had learned from the Hearing God class. She had a relationship with the Holy Spirit in a way that used different words and meant the same thing. But because she had that background of, for the life that she lived before, she was able to communicate with the women in there in a way I couldn't. And so I was really diligent almost every day. I was really diligent almost every day. I would spend my days doing Bible studies, and I would be, oh gosh, just writing. Like, I have 4 manila folders worth of paper. I wrote 35 Bible studies, and Amanda and I teamed up, and we were able to take on topics that were really relevant to the women in the room. Like, there's a lot of conflict in jail, a lot of physical altercations, um, a lot of back and forth. He said, she said, like, everyone's scared, and we needed like some things to talk about, and like, how would Jesus do this? How would God redeem this situation right now? Or how, like, just really practically, like, if we want to be like Jesus in this room, what does that look like? And we started getting a few women also kind of included and involved. And I started walking a few of the women through hearing God, practical ways to like access that. And they've never even known that that was a thing before, just like me. And so I'm seeing these women like, or go through the identity exchange process that I've learned through Jamie and Donna Winship. And so, um, do you know who they are? I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jamie Winship actually helped me get sober. Cause I know him. They live in Kingsport. So I actually met him just through the church I go to. And I just thought he was working for the church at the time. So I didn't know who he was, but, Jamie Winship helped me get sober. And so, but
Praise God.
I know. And they have been such a loving couple in ways that, like, it doesn't make sense in the ways that they've loved me. They hardly know me, and they've helped me out in so many ways. Um, and I know they do that for countless other people just around the world. Um, but like all of the things that I've learned, I'm teaching in there. And so I had this little ministry going. And after the first couple of weeks, when finally, those death threats stopped, some of the women were, lovingly, but kind of joking. They were calling me the Jesus dealer. But
Yeah.
it really was just a partnership between like me and Amanda. And so remember I told you that like I was so scared every day that you never know when you might get taken to go to prison to go see what that deal is. But it was like even the guards were like, we don't know why you haven't been pulled yet. So at this point, I'm serving my 65-day sentence. I know when I'm getting out. And so as the longer that she was there, even though I was so grateful that she didn't leave the room because she was my safety net. She was my bubble. She was she was my soul sister. We would read David G. Benner books together. We were having like the deepest conversations at the highest level than anyone I've ever known. And it was over beans and hot dogs.
Yeah, because to be clear, she's an inmate along with you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she's had, I don't even remember how much time she had served, but years in prison. So we were all like, why is Amanda still here? Because they had taken other women in the same situation as her a month or weeks earlier. And so she knows that my timeout is going to be soon on September 9th. And she got hopeless. She's like, why am I like, she felt forgotten. Like there was issues with the state, even her lawyer, her mom, like they're all trying to communicate and like, they're not getting any answers. So I get out September 9th, Mick. They dress me back into my street clothes and I have to walk past that cell one more time.
Mm.
and she's packing up her stuff because 20 minutes after I get called out, she gets the call. And she came in on the same day I did. So we did the exact same time to the hour. And there was no rhyme or reason, but I just know that she kept me sane. I couldn't have done that time the way I wouldn't have been able to have the influence because my role was to write the Bible studies, do all kind of like the knowledge stuff or like figure out what we're going to talk about. And then she helped me communicate that in the way that would be heard to the people we were talking to.
Yeah.
And
She was
so
credible.
absolutely. And with people were calling me Jesus freak, everyone called her my guardian angel. Not Jesus freak, Jesus dealer.
Okay.
They probably called me that too.
Slip, right?
Well, listen, they called me a lot of other things, but I won't say those on this podcast. But yeah, if they were calling me Jesus dealer, they kept saying like, "Oh, Amanda's Jordan's guardian angel." And within 20 minutes, she got taken after me.
Yeah. Wow.
So I've been out for a couple of months. It has not been easy to just join back into my life again after what I experienced. And, experiencing some PTSD, but I'm having as much of like the stressful situation of that place. I also draw back to those memories of the communion that I had with God to get me out of the stress. I mean, I can't explain it, but I just know that I needed to be there. It disrupted my life. It probably, I don't think I'll be able to get back my retail business partnership again. I mean, I don't know what the next couple of months looks like for me. But I just know that when I was in the most stressful situation and environment around women who scared me, God transformed my heart to start to love them. And I really do love them. And I miss some of them. And I know that he was communicating to me that even the women, like, part of what my identity is a kind of a creative communicator. And my desire, and I really feel called to love women who also feel disposable or unworthy, and to make sure that they know that they are not defined by their worst decision or their inmate number. Because that's what changed my life. That's the only way I could survive that experience. And it's how I'm still trying to figure out how to survive on the outside. It's just knowing who God actually calls me and not believing the lies of my false identity. And it's the identity exchange, concept. But it's changed my life.
Oh, Jordan. Wow.
Yeah. And that's why that's why I just want to share my story, because if I could have heard this years ago, I probably wouldn't have experienced the heartache that I've gone through and put myself in because having legal troubles is not cheap either. And so there's that extra stress, right? And so court fines and other fees you have to pay, and the general shame that you feel. And so how was it to walk back into church after that when I knew people knew where I was? And so instead of trying to hide it, I'm telling it the way that it needs to be heard, because it was not me who made it good. It was God who made it good. He turned what could have been another situation that could make me suicidal. And he turned it into my heart being transformed and me being able to speak into other women. And we did, Amanda and I got to lead some women into the prayer to get Jesus into their heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm not sure where everyone is now, like I'm not in contact with everyone anymore, but
yeah.
But who knows? Who knows what kind of movement could have happened? I'm just honored. I'm just honored to be part of it.
Yeah. Man, I track with you on that. Oh, Jordan, thank you for laying this out. There's so much there. We got to explore some pieces a little bit more, but man, I feel like I'm just still in absorbing mode, So yeah, a lot in a good way. And I'm so grateful for how you just laid it out in terms of what could have been essentially a suicidal triggering type of experience ends up being good, transformative, and you are declaring that it was God that did that, not you. That's worth the price of admission right there. So, for all of our listeners, I mean, man, tell us, we're going to rewind a little bit, but I want to stay here right now. Tell us more about the heart transformation that you've mentioned here recently.
I have to constantly talk to God every day. Because once I learned what it means to hear from God, it doesn't necessarily mean that I always do, but it's the act of surrender. And so the heart transformation is, I know I cannot do this on my own. Wisdom only comes from God. And he makes better decisions than I do, as you've seen. And that when you hear from the creator of the universe that he loves you, he created you for a purpose and a reason, and that I have an inherent worth that cannot be taken away, how can I walk into a meeting about a video project that I have at work with fear like I used to? Because I was so scared of what people thought of me, because I had I was lost. So finding my true identity, and that's not necessarily the name, that people might call themselves. God called me that. I say creative communicator, but that could have easily just been something I call myself that feels right. But I know that I am his daughter. And so it has taught me, like, the heart transformation went from being really fearful all the time because other people's opinions about me was how I felt about myself. And the heart transformation is, now I know whose I am, and I can do scary things or just normal things with less anxiety and less fear, and make just like basic everyday decision making is no longer rooted in fear or scarcity, but it's in abundance and it's in peace. And I've learned that you can really only make decisions from a place of fear or from a place of peace. Those are the only two options.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning how to choose peace, and I'm not great at it. I'm still learning. But it's like, I could be fallible because, like, I don't have to be perfect, and there's like a weight lifted off me, because of that. And I think maybe I was numbing myself for so long because I felt like I wasn't perfect. And I really wanted to be perfect a lot. I mean, I was, good in school, but I couldn't apply that outside of school. And so I think that's where it all began. And when it's that easy of a fix to just change your mind and be like, oh yeah, I'm actually okay. God loves me. He created me with a purpose and a worth. Then like that's transformation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
How did you get there?
I think I spent so many years being so miserable that it was kind of like a Hail Mary,
Same here.
because I know what it's like to want to die. I know what it's like to not feel like there's any point in living anymore. And there were little glimpses of people loving me. Like there's probably 3 women that I used to work with who really showed me who Jesus is, um, and who drew me back to him just by loving me and accepting me and forgiving me and giving me whatever I needed, even if that was tough love. But it was like, nothing's going to change if nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And so, how do I stop? Like, how do I survive this? Because if I don't change my mind radically about who I am and how I'm making decisions in life, I will be stuck in this cycle forever, or I'm going to die, or I'm going to
Mm.
die. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't really want to die. I just don't want to live like this anymore. And so it was a desperate call. And because I grew up in church and because I knew Bible verses and, for the first couple of years I was really struggling, I was actually very anti-God. I don't know if I would say I was atheist, but it's not that I didn't have a relationship with God. It was I had a bad relationship with God.
Mm.
And
I understand that.
mhm. and when it feels like anger, anger at God for not, blessing you with the life that you see other people having. Or what really got me is like, because I feel like I've always struggled mentally just with like depression. And then like knowing that other people just don't have depression. I'm like, why do I have depression? Like, God, like, why is this my struggle that's gonna almost take my life, And so there's anger. I was angry all the time. And I was so tired of it. But something that I learned in jail, um, other than weird foods you can make, because that's a thing, out of all the snack foods, um, I actually got to be really creative with my food skills in there a couple times. But one of the things I learned in jail was that, and this is based on a Timothy Keller sermon that I heard on the podcast that was available to me on the tablets that you get. And so he was talking about anger. Anger is just energy at the defense of something. Like,
Hmm.
anger is not inherently bad. And in fact, we should be angry at injustice and greed, right? And so I was able to acknowledge that I was really angry for a long time, but it was what I was doing with my anger that was harming me, not the fact that I was angry. And so now I'm learning, oh, I'm okay if I'm angry. Um, it's forgivable to be angry. Anger is not evil or a sin. It is how you use it. And so now I'm not broken. I just need to figure out how to use my anger. And I was able to bring my anger into church. I started going to, like, I was dipping my toe at a couple different places in town, but I found out that, and actually, like the church I go to now, they were a client of ours at the marketing agency. And
Hmm.
so I was actually, before I was even comfortable going back to church, years before I started going back, I was like kind of forced or had to do a shoot there, like a photo shoot there for something that they were doing. And so I had an interaction with an individual at that church And then like a year later, I actually come back to come visit for real. And that individual remembered me because at the
Wow.
time I had really bright red hair, and he goes, "Hey, Red, I was wondering when you'd come back." And it was just that like,
Wow.
yeah, and I that's not a coincidence either, you know? So yeah, it was a hail. I was so angry. I was tired of it. I brought my anger to church, and God doesn't flinch. He says,
Mm.
"Come on, let's rumble. And now I'm going to show you how to start loving yourself because I love you." That's what happened.
Wow. Praise God.
Mhm.
God doesn't flinch. Let's rumble. Yeah, I
Because
get that.
I think I think people get hung up because they feel like they can't be honest with God. Like they have to
Yep.
just appear like holy at all times, but like we're not. And when you can just be honest, like nothing will change if you lie to yourself about it, and nothing will change if you lie to God about it. That's how addicts get out of addiction, because they have to have that honest conversation. But nothing changes if you're lying to yourself or to God or to others. Um, and so bring your honest rage or questions to God and just watch how he still loves us. That doesn't make sense. But then it starts to make sense because you learn the character of God. And then it gets really exciting because then he calls you to do the same thing. And you're like, oh, I don't know if I could do that.
And then he gives us the strength to do it.
Yeah. And then he gives us a lot of opportunities to practice it too.
That's for sure. Oh, wow. Tell us a little bit about surrender, because you use that word.
Mm-hmm. It's hard. So just to reiterate, surrender, I think, has to start with honesty, because I think for a lot of years, I only surrendered the things that I felt okay losing. And I held on to the things I didn't know. I don't know who I am without, I can't just surrender everything. You know, that's what I was feeling like. Um, it's terrifying because it's that loss of control. It's admitting that I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know if it happens all in one day or if it's like a little bit every day, but I think it changes. I think like um or maybe it's like thematically, like, you know, I surrendered my anger or my need for control, you know, on this day, but then I was able to surrender my alcohol abuse another day. And you just chip away at it. I'm not sure. I think it's probably different for everyone. But for me, it definitely had to start with honesty. And it really feeling like I could surrender and that I would be okay was knowing that I would always be surrounded by community.
Hmm.
And that was huge for me because I don't think I would have been able to surrender um, and really pursue sobriety, like really, really, if I thought I'd had to do it alone. And
Hmm.
I tried the AA meetings and stuff. And there is something about having to constantly identify yourself as an alcoholic. I still don't even want to say that now. But it's kind of, uh, it kind of goes back to just like, what is my identity? That's not who God created me to be. Um, and I think those are valuable. I think a lot of people get a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I probably wasn't in the right space when I actually went, but surrendering is really hard. But I think honesty and community, and then just the desire to know that, Timothy Keller, I'm going to quote him every day. He said something like, it's kind of like the concept of, he was defining self-control in this way, but I think it fits for surrender as well. And it's the desire for the greater thing instead of the immediate thing.
I track with you on that.
Yeah. I think that's interesting that surrender and self-control can kind of fit with the same definition. But yeah, I think you have to choose the greater thing that might take a little longer than choosing the thing that you want right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fill us in a little bit more on your sobriety and give us a little bit of what that journey looked like. Because you've mentioned it, you've sprinkled it in along the way, and talked about in some instances pursuing it more so than others, and maybe just round that out for us.
Absolutely. So after you get a DUI, you have a little device put into your car. And so for the first or after the second DUI, I had that in there for like 2.5 years. And so that was my container. And it was that outside force that was kind of making me, like, if I want to use my car to go to work, I better be able to start my car. And and it's not that I was drinking in the morning, but like if you drink enough the night before, it'll still be in your system. And so I it it was like a container for me to start thinking in that way. But I think it also prolonged my true surrender to sobriety, because I was able to, like, I knew exactly how much I could drink so that I'd be able to go to work in the morning. And so it still ruled my life, even though I knew how to kind of like, I can't be addicted if I'm keeping a job and I'm showing up every day, right? But I think I was just high functioning. Thankfully, it never led to me like losing a job, or it's so socially acceptable too. And so um, what really that sometimes I think that having that device in my car was really harmful for me in certain ways, because it just meant if I wanted to drink, I would just do it at home alone. Hmm. And so instead of going out and being with people, um, I could just be alone and numb. So in some ways, like, not that that device did that, but that's how I chose to circumvent trying to get sober. But yeah, so for years, like off and on, I would, I read books, I was listening to sobriety podcasts, I would really want it. But then I am a sensitive person, and so like if there was a breakup or like, that would become my way to numb. And so I knew what I was doing the whole time. I wasn't like, I wonder why I drink. I knew why I was drinking.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I was just choosing to do it. But then I knew, like, I can always choose to stop. And so it was always just kind of like whenever I get sober, not if. But I just never felt like my life was important enough to really stop. And so it wasn't until I really, because I was going to therapy, I was doing all the cooking stuff from I was starting a business. I had a great job. I had friends, but like, it wasn't until I actually started on a spiritual journey that I was able to really, um, learn that I was worth pursuing sobriety for. And
Wow.
I think something that pops up with perpetually single people who might have this problem is that, we live alone, unless we have a roommate, but we live alone. We have no one to like show up for or be responsible for. And it doesn't like, I think there were times in my life where I would say well, if I had a boyfriend, I would be sober. But that's putting more importance on me being sober for someone else and not me being sober for me. And so it really took my spiritual journey to learn my identity, to figure out the lies that I was believing, and how to actually like record over those lies of the world with God's truth and learn who I was. That I was like, oh, I'm really doing the world a disservice by not showing up as the person that God created me to be. And so that's when it was like, how do I fix this? It was after the car wreck in March 2024. I woke up with the left side of my head on this, the airbag that deployed and police lights. And I just like kind of fallen into a ditch. And so like, but it was on a road right by a river. I could have gone into a river. I mean, I could have gone into that river or I could have hit another car. And it was like, this is what, even though like at that night, I wouldn't have considered myself to be that bad. That is what alcohol could potentially do to my life. And so it was
Yeah.
like that really, I really internalized the fact that like I could have killed someone. And unfortunately, I didn't have that realization with the other two. And I was like, this isn't just like a waste of time. This could ruin my life. And it kind of did, but guess who made it good? God made it good. Yeah. God made it good. I mean, I still regret a lot of the time that I've like spent. Like I still feel like maybe I would be doing something cooler in a cooler place, like if I actually lived up to my potential. But I'm placed here. This is what happened to me. This is how God is working. I wouldn't have met. And I keep thinking about, the timing, the place. Why was it 15 months between the arrest and the, sentencing? And I think it's because there was some kind of orchestration of who would be in the room with me during that time. That's not a coincidence.
Yep.
Right? But I think that's my sober journey. I think that's it. Like, you really have to admit, like, this could kill me or someone else. And only when it gets to that point will you really make that change.
Yeah. Well, I think I've got one more for you before we kind of land the plane with our coincidence or God questions.
Mm-hmm.
Early on in our conversation, at least, you talked about how your mom came and got you.
Mm-hmm.
And then how she also moved to, and you followed her to Tennessee. Where's mom fit into all of the later parts of your story that you've shared that we haven't heard about her?
I mean, she's constant. I still bug her every day or every other day, we still, we have very honest conversations, and it's not always been the easiest because, people who've done things that I've done, you've come to find out that really hurts your family. And so we've had those good conversations, but she's been so good about making sure that I know that I can always come to her. And it's been a hard season for my family in general. And so I can't say much more other than that, but it's um we're still we're still good. But yeah, it has been tough, and it's not just because of me. There's, normal life stuff, and everyone's family has their
Yeah.
issues, but um I do wish that we were like more on the same page with God and the Holy Spirit. And I think that that's something that um, I wish I knew how to fix or encourage, or that's something that I really am praying about. Not that I'm not going to judge her walk with God, but I'm the only one in my family that really has a church community and seems to be serious about my pursuit of like spiritual formation. And even it seems like whenever I share like sermons or things that I think are really good, sometimes it feels like it falls on deaf ears. And so I still kind of feel like an other in that aspect, but I'm not going to stop. and they've my whole family. I have a brother and a father in the picture as well. They constantly, like, the whole time I was locked up, they guess who took care of my cats every day and showed up for me, took care of my vehicle. There's
Yeah.
acts of service that they showed up when I was in my toughest place. And I wish we were on, a more similar um, mindset when it comes to prayer or how we talk to each other. But that's just still something that God's working on.
Yeah. Thanks for being vulnerable with that, Jordan.
Mhm. Well, I tell them every day that I love them and that I'm sorry because I feel like I I'm very sorry about all the things that I've done, and I'm aware of my role in the dysfunction. But I say that because um I think other people need to hear it right now too. You're not alone, but honesty and conversation is and forgiveness is the only way through it. And it
Yeah.
helps if we all have the same sense of humor, because even if we're not on the same page, in other ways, we're constantly sharing dad jokes, and so that's the
There you
dynamic.
go. Yeah. Oh, wow, Jordan. Thanks for sharing all this. You've
Absolutely.
been very clear that many things that have occurred have not been coincidences, but we asked the question of
Yes.
all of our guests. Okay. So we've got 15 months instead of a much shorter time frame. We've got Amanda and Amanda's 20-minute gap after you're in street clothes. We've got 3 people that somehow get into your apartment and basically save you from dying.
Yes.
We got all kinds of stuff because you've covered a lot of ground, and I don't have all of those pieces. But the question is, were those things coincidence, or was God moving?
I would not be alive if God didn't orchestrate the people I knew, the people I worked with. They knew where I live, all the details when they came. I wouldn't have survived the 65 days in jail in the way that I did without a person who knew how to talk my language and talk other people's language.
Mm.
Right? Like, and the 15 months, I mean, that's completely, I had no way of knowing when, because the courts could have at any time said, no, you have to show up at this time. But it was just so lucky. And I know that not everyone else has that opportunity. And I think part of it is because it wasn't a bigger charge. And I've had the same job for 7, 8 years at that point. And so the community didn't see me as like a huge threat to be out. Um, but still, the judge didn't have to say yes, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
so many ways that that could have been different. But I think I was supposed to give that TED talk, the TEDx talk, the more regional, smaller version of TED, but because he was preparing me, because it's not just that night. Like you have 6 months to prepare for that. And I was learning about like vocal image and like writing and, oh gosh, just falling in love with the audition, or not audition, but like the practicing and, um, body movement and just storytelling and doing something that I'm scared to do. And all of that was training to go into the scariest place I could think of and talk about Jesus. I don't think I
How
could have
about that?
done I would not have been able I've never actually thought about that before, but it wasn't just like, "Oh, this is a fun opportunity that Jordan gets to do," but I was nominated. I wasn't going to apply because I was too scared, even though I wanted to. And then I found out that I was nominated, to do it. And I still don't know who nominated me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's because
Hmm.
I was sharing my heart. I had like a little tiny podcast on my Instagram, my baking page. And it's odd. I was having a little podcast about resiliency. It's called At East I'm Trying because I'm all about the pun.
That's good.
But it
At
was
yeast, I'm trying.
East I'm Trying because the point is like at least you're trying something. And it was the like lessons of resiliency from chefs, foodies, and bakers or from the kitchen. But it was conversations about resiliency on like a tiny little micro bakery page. And it's because I was obedient and knowing that like I'm supposed to have conversations to people about this topic, in whatever sphere of influence I have. And because of that, someone saw, hey, I want to see her do a TEDx talk. And because
Hmm.
of the TEDx talk, oh, hey, I have the courage to step into a room full of women who scare me and show them love and show them how to hear from God. Yeah. None of it's a coincidence. None of it is.
Yeah. Thank you for being clear about that.
Yeah. Well, I love that that's the point of the show too. And I love that. I love that you do that. So thank you for all the stories that I've listened to on your platform that remind me that that's the case. There is a God who is so sovereign and knows even when it feels like nothing's going right, you have no idea. And just, you can have a hope and you can have faith that something's happening and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Really well said. I mean, I've got countless guests that I think would agree with you, and I know that I certainly can. Like, no question.
Yeah.
Well, let's land this plane with the last question,
Okay.
which is, how has your life changed as a result of everything that you've described?
I look at myself in the mirror and I'm proud. Um, I'm able to be more honest with myself about my own failings. Gosh, oh, I walk around without like the weight of self promotion, self preservation constantly. And my life has really changed because since I got out, project that I've been working on with my old boss, um, is doing some like training, like hearing, sorry, identity training and contemplative listening trainings for staffs of clients that we've worked with. So, and they're kind of creating, by the blessing of Jamie and Donna Winship, just a 2-man team that goes in and helps organizations build whole, resilient people. And I, I came out of jail, and when they welcomed me back into work, they said, "Actually, do you want to do this other thing instead?" So I'm still doing a lot of the creative stuff at work, but my life has changed because of my experience, I'm more qualified to speak to people who might need to hear from someone who had my experiences. That's what happens. I didn't even think about including that either, Mick, until you asked that question. But my life has changed because now I'm walking the talk every day. And when you are stuck in the cycle of addiction, everything's a facade because no one can really know what you're doing. But now I'm like, I'm in truth and I'm in peace. And circumstances aren't that much different. Money's not much better, like still single, like still have family dysfunction. All the circumstances are different. But now I know whose I am and what he calls me. That's how it changed. Yeah.
Man, praise God. Because those seem like small words, but that is not. That's an entirely different life for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wish, like, that's why I go on these podcasts and share what I share, because I want specifically women to know that there is a God who created us with a purpose and a worth. And we can record over the lies of the world with God's truth. And once we walk every day knowing that we are loved and that we don't have to, again, self-promote, self-preservation, like we can just be loved. And then that weight falls off our shoulder. We can like have more joy, more peace, more self-control. That's why, I don't know. That's why I do it. It's all him. It's all him.
Thank you for doing it. Thank you for declaring about the King. It has been a real pleasure to talk all this through. Thank you for being on When You Look, Jordan.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Was it coincidence or God? You decide for yourself, but I believe you just heard a story for His glory. When You Look is powered by stories just like this, and yours could be next. Go to whenyoulook.com/be-a-guest or use the link in the description below. Drop us a comment and share this episode with somebody that needs it. Until next time, thanks a bunch for listening and watching, and God bless.